time to get to 3 and Out here on the Big College Football Show, and we're going to go with our first down. So Ohio State's national championship gave the Big Ten back-to-back national championships for the first time since the 1965-66 and 66-67 seasons. Of course, Michigan won it all a year ago, going a perfect 15-0 on the season. So it begs the question, Jake, if both teams are at their peak, that's the key there, who would win? 2023 Michigan, 2024 Ohio State?
Well, I got to give credit to Ohio State, man, because this, what we saw in the playoffs is the confirmation of the potential at their peak. This is one of the all-time great teams. The roster absolutely loaded. How about this? Ohio State beat 6 of the top 8 teams in the final college football playoff rankings. Only team they didn't beat was Georgia. They themselves were one of those top 8 teams. This team is loaded. The roster is loaded. They've been impressive. But in Ohio State, Michigan, you always take Michigan. Why? They can be at their best, but it's something up here. There's some limitation, some mental block for Ohio State. You can have your best day, Buckeyes, but you fall short in this game. I don't even need to talk about X's and O's. That's just the truth.
Always take Michigan.
That is the truth. Always take Michigan.
All right. I'm not going to get personal here. I've got the wins.
Oh, we're talking about right now.
I know, but you said always take Michigan. Always is absolute. I just want to clarify.
About right now.
All right, so I'm
until proven otherwise.
I see what you're saying about the mental block, and I think we can all acknowledge it's there, right? Like, there's no reason this Ohio State team should have ever lost to Michigan, a 3-touchdown favorite in that game. They found a way to lose it. But we're talking about this Ohio State team at their peak. You mentioned what they did to get to a national championship. I think that's why people are so enamored with the story here. The path that they had to run through. And then you go back to the regular season where they had Penn State, who was a top 5 team at the time. You had Indiana, who was a top 10 team at the time. Michigan last year didn't even play as many ranked teams as Ohio State beat in terms of top 8 teams this year. That's where I get to this point where it's like, you give me Will Howard the way that he was playing at the end of the year. This is a guy who's climbing up draft boards. We weren't talking about him like that at the beginning of the season. Jeremiah Smith and the way that they use him to start off the playoffs, and then they take him out of the game plan. It doesn't matter. You got other guys who step up, and then you get to the Notre Dame game where they're balanced in terms of their output, rushing and passing. It was a really hard team to figure out offensively when they were at their peak. And that defense, Michigan's defense last year, I thought was phenomenal. It was one of the best defenses that we've seen. This Ohio State defense from this year, about the same. About the same. The way that they were playing at their peak, they had one bad game this year against Oregon. Outside of that, they were stout.
Do not be deceived. The run with Jeremiah Smith, we all saw it, absolutely phenomenal. Michigan, that 23 Michigan team at its peak would have had Will Johnson at his peak.
Got cooked by Marv for 100 yards last year.
You would have an NFL head coach, a brilliant mind, or an NFL defensive coordinator that led the turnaround of the Chargers as Michigan's defensive coordinator. You'd have Jim Harbaugh, who turned around the Chargers, as your head coach once again. That's a piece that is forgotten here. You're talking Michigan at its best versus Ryan Day at his best. We saw what happened with Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day.
How Will Johnson got 100 yards put on his head last year in Ann Arbor. We forgot about that, didn't we?
We did forget about that because we saw the final result.
Yeah, last year when he was healthy,
we saw the
100 yards on his head.
Did we see the interception?
Marv cooked him, and I think you and I both agreed that we would take Jeremiah right now.
Turnovers
at his peak.
Turnovers decide these games. We saw the interception. That's a chess match.
All I'm saying, I feel like we're looking at the low-light version of Ohio State right now. And I will concede to you that Ohio State playing the way that they played largely through the regular season is not coming close to beating that Michigan team from last year. There's no disrespect to them. That was a phenomenal championship team. They had great leadership. They had the right guys there who ended up being really good players. And to your point, the coaching staff was on point. But what I saw from the very top end of Ohio State this year, I'm putting them up against 19 LSU.
Well, I don't think we're going to see eye to eye in this one. Michigan's ability to run the ball, play ball control, it would be a frustrating day for the Buckeyes. So I will stick with Michigan.